everybody. So you guys are doing great. I can't believe we are this far along and it's only an 8-week class, so it goes by really fast, but I'm proud of the work you're doing. I am addressing this to both my watercolor class and my sketching class, and some of you are in both, and most of you aren't, but there is some overlap. And I feel like with this week's lesson, we are doing portraits and figures in both classes. So I thought, there's a lot of sketching that goes behind the scenes in a portrait or figure watercolor. And a lot of times I'm telling my sketchbook people to incorporate watercolor into their sketches because it's fun. So I figure at least for this video, where I'm showing you some inspiration and talking about portraits and figures, I might as well address all of you at once. So hopefully that's okay with you. Um, anyway, there we go. So portraits and figures, it's a lot. And some people are incredibly intimidated by it, and some people have been just waiting till we got to this point. So whatever group you fall into, hopefully you will be happy. I think that, yeah, portraits can be super scary, but once you dive in with a different mindset, realizing a portrait doesn't, and I'm going to show you some different ones, you will see that it doesn't have to be intimidating. You don't have to create a lifelike photorealistic painting or sketch or drawing of a person. You can really be expressive with it, maybe even be flatter with it, more comical if you want, or whimsical. You can take this in any direction you want. My goal for you is that you keep it fun, that you make it enjoyable. So if you are afraid and don't want to do this, that's fine. Do more what you love, but I encourage you to just jump in and at least try it, and don't give up after the first try. Try it and push through. I always tell my oil painters too that oftentimes in oil and acrylic paintings, you have to push past the ugly. There's not a lot of pushing time when we're quickly sketching or when we're watercoloring. So you just sort of make a lot of them. You just keep going. It's paper, throw it away or turn the page so you can see how you've progressed along the way. Keep it and keep going. Make more. And the more you make and the more styles and different approaches you attempt, you're gonna find your little niche here. You're just gonna find your groove and what you like to do and what you're attracted to. A lot of that comes from looking, like I've always been telling you all along. Practice looking all the time. Practice looking at the people across the line in the grocery store and try to think, how would I break that down into a sketch or a painting? What color is that? How would I match their hair? What paint would I use to do that? Or what drawing techniques would I use to achieve that? Things like that. You start noticing and looking. So I encourage you to keep doing that. Even when you don't have time to get out your supplies, you can always be painting in your head and drawing in your head and figuring things out. And then when you do end up at your table or your sketchbook or wherever you're painting or drawing, when you have those supplies at the ready, then um, you'll know what to do. You'll go right in and be able to do it a lot faster without a lot of thought because you've already thought through the process. You've already mixed the colors or thought about what kind of line that would be and how I would go lighter or darker or whatever. So that's my encouragement on that. I want you to just jump in this week and do it. And if you really hate it, then do a landscape or still life or whatever it is you want to draw or paint, whatever is going to make you happy. My goal for you, like I said, is just to do what you love, but do it. So don't not sketch, don't not paint, for my painters. Just pull the stuff out and make yourself do it as much as you can. Every day is my goal. And if you get 5 days a week, then I'm absolutely thrilled. So try to keep working at that. Even if you haven't achieved or worked up to 5 days a week yet in our 6 weeks together, you've got 2 more weeks to nail this. So you can do it. All right. Okay. So keep trying. I'm going to pause this for a minute and switch my. All right. So I thought I'd just go through just a few publications and just we'll just look at some art together for a minute and get inspired. But I encourage you to, you might have art books on the shelf. You definitely, you're on a computer. There are so many places to search there for imagery and for other people's paintings, looking at museums, especially, and going to watercolor collections or sketches, sketchbooks, drawings. All of those things you can search for portraits and figurative work. And get inspired, go to the things that you really like. I'll show you just a few things. So I grabbed this couple magazines off my shelf. I've got the Watercolor Artist magazine. And so it's kind of fun just to look at how different people will portray the figure in a portrait. So a portrait can mean just, the head, right? You can cut it off right here and that could be your portrait, or you can include a whole lot more of the body. Anything goes, okay? So when we're talking about portraits, I mean anything. If you want to just do a focus in close-up of just the face, you can do that for sure. If you want to include more and have more of a storytelling element, you can do that. If you want to just practice on eyes or ears, use this time for that. Don't feel like you have to make a whole beautiful portrait, right? This is practice. This is just like trying out things and just seeing, how do we get these highlights? How do we get the tonal areas of the face? How are we addressing maybe clothing, the folds in fabric and patterns? So all of those kind of things, whether you're working in a sketchbook, sketching in pencil or in ink, or if you're, applying watercolor to it. But these are just some really beautiful paintings, watercolor paintings. So just showing a lot of different ways. The other thing I want to address, because we're cramming a lot into, our 8 weeks, you might just be doing landscapes and really wanting to know how to get the figures in your landscape. So that is, definitely something we're going to talk about this week too. So if you're not really into doing the full up close portrait, but you want some figures, maybe just focus on that this week. It's a lot to do in 1 week, and I don't expect you guys to do it all. I want to show you as much as I can, but don't get overwhelmed. Do what you want to do, and do what's going to help your painting or your drawings and sketches. So stuff like this, like, for if you are working in a sketchbook, oftentimes we want to get the people in our sketch. We're out urban sketching, we're out and about, and we want to see how do we get people in there? Looking down on a beach, these tiny little figures, a lot of, we call them carrots, right? So look at the figures as you're looking down, you see the top and then they narrow down. So I'll be showing you a little bit about how to do that, because all you need is a little blob of, of a mark, whether it is in ink or pencil or watercolor. It's these little blobs that you can add a teeny bit of color in or not, but it gives the indication that that's a person, and it reads people. Anchoring it with that shadow. If you just had the figure without the shadow, it wouldn't read correctly. So I think that's it for that magazine. I want to show you too, this another watercolor magazine. I have piles of them here, but here, just to see that there's different, definitely different approaches. This is a much flatter look. It's not as modulated. The artists have gone kind of crazy with the color, and it's just beautiful, I think, and the line and the color. This works, whether you're a sketcher or a watercolor artist, this is a nice approach that you can try. Same as this one down here. There's a lot of drawing in here, a lot of mark making, and then just washes of color and pattern. Again, for the whole interior scene that we were just working on with perspective and interiors, if you wanted to be putting people in these scenes, it's nice just to look at how other artists are doing that. Crossing the crosswalk, people out and about. So these are like super hard. I'm not expecting you to be this level at all, but I want you to, don't be afraid to try these things. Here's just a up close of a face. So you don't even have to have the top of the head or the whole body. You just want to focus on this and see what you can get. Maybe there's, a photo you like, you can work from a photo. I think working from life if you can, is always just better for you. But doing this is just a really neat way just to see if you can get these wrinkles in the nose and the mouth and those eyes, and maybe focusing in on the eyes a lot and seeing, you know, what you can do. And here's a portrait without a head. So that's always a possibility too. And, oh, right, and this, I mean, just beautiful, just like focusing on light and shadow. That's just the light glaring on it, but anyway, there we go. But isn't that just gorgeous? Just looking at that and trying to figure out how the artist did it. The washes of color that just drip down, but then the attention to detail when you come to the eyes, especially. So all this to say, there are so many ways you can go about this. I'll go through a few of my favorite little books too. There's so many styles. There's so many stylistic approaches. Like even just looking at the cover of this is one of my favorite books, Drawn from Life. It's great for both classes, for sketching and for watercolor. There's great examples in here and tricks and things to do. But here I've got a few. And I didn't mark pages in this one, but let's see. But just looking at, you know, the sketches, how people are approaching the figure here. Oftentimes we're just gonna, you know, kind of figure out approximate proportions. Don't get so weighed down in that. I feel like we spend a lot of time being weighed down in perspective and other things. And sometimes you just have to just like this, go for it. But here's how, you know, having a few little hints on like, okay, well, the male body is generally 8 heads down. Female is, I don't know, like 7.5. So getting those proportions, saying, okay, there's a head, 1, 2, 3, out the leg, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know, and down. It's kind of a 7 one, but anyway, you know, averages are averages. So, but it reads correctly. You've got things in proportion. You don't have his head like way out here and huge. It fits with the body and it looks right. So sometimes it's just a matter of, if you have someone sitting in front of you, for example, looking at how much, you know, looking at the negative space, oftentimes drawing that little negative space in his arm before you get the rest in is sometimes a good starting point, you know, or you get the head and then you draw the negative space and then work out where the arm is, if it's something like that. But just always like measuring a little bit, at least, you know, with your fingers, just saying, oh yeah, that's about right. That's about right. And then be done with it, you know, and move on. And so for watercolor people, you're going to be maybe lightly sketching before you go in with your watercolors, because the figure's kind of difficult just to go in straight without any kind of map. It's good to at least have a light sketch in. Plan it out a bit, really think about it. And I think you'll have more success, especially if you're doing, you know, the whole body. If you're doing just the face, sometimes you can just go for it with paint. But just looking at the loose sketches, the different ways you can practice these things. You can draw yourself in a mirror or even on your computer screen. You can just get yourself on your own FaceTime. But in front of, you know, set up something where you can work at drawing yourself or painting yourself. I love how this person did it. They're just getting their feet. They're just sitting there and they're sketching themselves. And it's just, that's just charming. I love it. But that's practice. That's what we're doing. So it doesn't matter what part of the figure you're drawing or painting. Just, you know, getting figures at the park maybe, or at the pool, or wherever you find yourself. Sit there with your sketchbook. Watercolor artists too, sit there with your sketchbook. I don't nag you guys enough, but you guys should be carrying a sketchbook around as much as you can and work at this. It takes practice, lots and lots of practice. I'm just going to go through a lot of these. You guys really should get this book. I mean, if you want another book on your library, but this is one of my favorites. And what I like about it is that there are so many different styles and artists in here and ways to approach the figure that you might not have thought about. You know, we did the contour line drawing. Look at that. Just you just put your pencil down and don't pick it back up. You don't have to do blind contour because this clearly isn't, but keeping that pencil in place and going through, it's just kind of a neat, or pen, a neat activity. And this is this combination of well, this is charcoal, but you know, charcoal, the dark line, the sharper line, and the smudginess. So trying like a couple of different things within. I love this little line drawing. If you have any grandchildren around and they're just sleeping, you can sit there and sketch away. Anytime you're doing babies, the lightest touch possible. So, but this is not, this is actually, you know, there's not a whole lot here. So that keeps it really smooth and round feeling. Again, just the gesture of it and the contour lines and just being really loose and fun with this, just figuring out the body and what it does. This is just a really fun portrait. Honestly, it's not, you know, super realistic, but it is. I mean, those eyes are penetrating and there's just something very expressive about this. That is a great, fun approach to try bringing in different things. So whether you're a watercolor or a sketchbook person, to try this, watercolor people, you can really throw some watercolor on there and have some fun, or just like, you know, grab some pencils and crayons and other things, a mixed media approach to your watercolors. More, this was done in pastel. It's interesting. This doesn't look like pastel. It's very rough looking. Looks more charcoal and pen, but it says pastel. And these are done with fine line pens, just getting the backs of people's heads. That would be a fun study just to try. You could even go onto a hair salon website and just try drawing a lot of different hairstyles, because that would be a really fun kind of project. Try painting them. See what you can do. I love all these. I'll just keep thumbing through. You don't have to buy the book. Oh goodness, no. I support buying books. Again, figures. Look how loose these are, but they really read figures on the beach. You know, if you want a little more detail than those carrot ones that I was showing you, here's just, you know, you could sit on the beach and just grab people in your sketchbook as they're walking by or sitting nearby and try to get some of these shapes. And honestly, you're just going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And you're going to have a lot of lousy ones. I know I do. But then there's you know, there'll be some good ones. And then pretty soon there'll be more good ones than bad ones if you keep practicing and keep looking. Of course, people don't necessarily want you looking at them in their bathing suits, but you know, you just do it. I love the travel ones. People are just kind of stuck there on a plane or on the bus, and you know, they're sleeping. They don't know they're being drawn. Maybe that's wrong. I don't know. Anyway, often, like, I like mixing just a little pop of color. We've talked about that before. So if you have a drawing and you just want to put a little bit of color into there, that's really fun. It really makes it jump, you know, just these stripes on the pillow. So let's see. Just practicing, but definitely showing what it is, you know. I think this one's really super fun with all this patterning and the arms in different positions, and that color. This was pen, watercolor, and gouache combination. I'll go a little bit longer. This is going to be a very long video, so I don't. I'll just thumb through quickly. Boom. But great book for this, just for getting ideas on how to get the form down, even if it's just in, you know, this kind of gestural line. This is just with a marker. I mean, really fun. And if you're a watercolor artist and you want to try something like this and then put some wash of color, that could be really cool. I like the white background too, but it could be really neat just dipping in some color into that. It's a waterproof marker. And here's an example of that. So this was ink and everything. And then I guess it's digital too, watercolor and digital. I'm not sure what the digital part on it is, but imagine just drawing something like this and dropping in these areas of color. It's just really lovely. And that's a pen and a brush, the brush ink. And honestly, it's like there's no detail in this, but it definitely reads portrait, it reads person. So, you know, maybe some of these aren't your thing. These are very contemporary, I get that. And some of you might want to know the more traditional way to do a watercolor or a sketch to make them look very realistic. And there's definitely places for that too. I'll try to attach something that you can look at there. But I want you to know that, you know, this is 1 week of one small summer class. If you want to really get into portraits and figure work, you need to work at it and you need to just keep going, even when they're not, you know, going as you want them to. I've been at it for a while and there's still a lot that I like, oh, you know, that's not right, or that doesn't, you know, and I'll redo and then I'll redo again. And I'm always looking at anatomy books and trying to figure out what those muscles underneath are doing. I know Hopper would paint that way where he would get really, you know, detailed nude on there on his paintings, but then he'd put the clothing on afterwards because he really wanted to have the muscles in the right place. That was, you know, important to him. So all that to say, this takes practice. It takes work. You can't do it in 1 week of a summer 8-week class. Look at that, isn't that cool? But you can get started and you can see what it is you're liking to do, what's exciting you, what medium is exciting you. If you're a sketchbook person, trying this out with your different pens or pencils, crayons, pastels, all the different things, charcoal, practice with those and see what you like best. Because sometimes for a figure, you know, a lot of times for my landscapes, I'll want one thing. For my figures, I like other things. You know, you start finding out what works best for you, what you're picturing. I mean, look at this. It's super rough, but I love it. You know, it's just really interesting. And just all lines, boom, boom, boom. Beautiful. It's a sepia fine line pen. That's another charcoal. And more charcoal. Charcoal's fun. I should do some of that for this. Maybe I will. Let's see, we'll go a little bit more. This is gonna be the longest video, sorry. Anyway, you can put it on fast speed if you want. I think you can. Here, just getting figures in this way. You're at the farmer's market and you could just like sit back away with your little sketchbook or even just snap a picture, but better to do it from life and try to get some figures in. See what you can get. See that the gesture, the way they're standing, their posture. You can recognize people just from their posture. You don't need to have, I mean, it's really interesting because if you know the person, it's pretty funny that you could pick them out of a crowd usually, and that's because of their head shape and their posture, and that's all you really need to get. And the rest is kind of like, well, I love this. It's just beautiful. It's just little splashes of color with the line. That one's on an iPad. Cool. This is ink, Conti, gouache, and pastel. Just a mix of all of it. I mean, isn't that gorgeous? And look at this. That's with some acrylic paint, charcoal and pencil. So getting a nice detailed pencil drawing in and then having some fun with some paint around it. I think just so much fun. This is, yeah, fine line pens, ink, and then they went digital with it. Interesting. Another iPad one. Ah. Colored pencil. So try whatever you want to try for this week. Have some fun. I am going to play and do some different samples for you, you know, just to play around with it. But that's what I want you to be doing too. So don't paint what I'm painting. I'll paint just to show you some different ideas, but gosh, I think just thumbing through this book shows us lots of different directions we could go. Especially for the sketchbook people. So sorry for the watercolor. I thought there were a few more watercolors in here, but there were. And there's definitely ideas. And honestly, it's really combining them is a great thing. So for watercolor artists too, I just want to show you really quick a few of these ones that I've done. I was doing a series of women and just using one color along with the water soluble graphite pencil. So that's another approach. If you want to just try a monotype, then you don't have to get into a lot of detail when you're just trying to capture the figure. Just having where's your lightest light, where's your darks, and getting that in just enough information to kind of show a figure. They're just little small studies, so they're not anything special, but they were just a way to capture the figure in a color without getting lost in all the color choices. This one I use more color, but anyway, it wasn't really part of the series, but anyway, so you see, you can just do very, very minimal and have the idea and let colors float around and just do different things. So another whole possibility. I think that the best thing you can do, like besides, you watch the video, you see this book or whatever, you may have books on your shelf. You definitely have websites you can go to museums, see what you love and start like, oh, how did they do that? I'm going to show you a few different things, but as you can see, there's so many ways we can go about this. So we'll play, think of it as playtime. And honestly, it's paper. So just explore and experiment. I can't tell you enough how great it is just to be able to play and just pull all your stuff out and have a fun day of just doing this. Grab some photo samples too, like photo references. Unsplash is a good place to get photos. Or if you're wanting to do people that's fine too. Here's the thing. I love painting from life. That's what I'm always encouraging you to do. So do that if you can. Sometimes in practicing, a lot of times it's just easier. Nobody's moving. I have a really good photo reference, not the pictures necessarily that I took, but pictures that professionals have taken with that perfect lighting, like see where that light's sitting inside of my cheek. Anyway, you know what I mean? So you've got this more dramatic lighting that you can play with. And often that's a good way just to get your feet wet. And then when you want to start painting your spouse or your kid or your, whoever, somebody that you want to be a little bit more confident, because if it's someone you don't know, nobody else knows them too. And it's like, oh yeah, sure, her nose really was that way or whatever it is, and it just gives you freedom just to relax with it and not have to have it has to look like the person too. So you can get past that point when you're doing strangers, right? And then as you grow confident, then start trying to do yourself. I mean, honestly, self-portrait's the best way to explore this because you're there, you're always there, you're your own model, what you look like, when it's off. And so, and your feelings aren't going to be hurt. So that's a good place to start too. So either way. All right, just have a great time this week. Let me know if you're having any problems at all. I'm here to help. And give yourself a break. People will study for years to do these. So one class is just we're getting our feet, just dipping our toes in. All right, just see if you like it. If you love it, then you continue studying it. Okay, have fun. Bye.